Hey everybody, welcome to Trading Capital's exclusive analysis. In today's video, we're discussing natural gas. Looking at the daily chart of nat gas, another blockbuster session for this commodity. It just seems to be on fire, squeezing, and squeezing. Now the question is this pattern getting a little bit parabolic? Is it sustainable? Am I bullish? Am I bearish? What is going on with nat gas? Well, today inventories came out better than expected. And look at the surge that nat gas had. And then all of a sudden, price action gave back most of that pump that happened off of the inventories. Then you got a nice little bounce intraday. We were able to capture this in the live day trading room via going long KOLD. Our subscribers and members in the live day trading room were able to make a nice little chunk of change. Now, although nat gas is up tonight in the futures, the question is it going to continue pushing from here? Obviously, there's this beautiful little trend line that I'm watching. You have to go to the weekly chart. And what's interesting about this little trend line is it connects this previous pivot high in 2021, connects this little high pivot here, connects your massive bounce spot in July of 2022, an impulse red candle breakdown zone right through this consolidation chop, tagging this high pivot, and we're now officially into that little trend line resistance zone. Now, obviously the resistance can still see a little bit of upside to about 274 as per the high of that little zone. But even in this vicinity, nat gas has had an astonishing move. Over 2.5 standard deviation move on the Bollinger Band puts it in extremely overbought situations. Every time we've hit that Bollinger Band on the upside here, you sold off. Here you sold off, sold off, sold off, sold off. Even if you go back through this previous price history, when we're going through the mania, the Ukraine-Russia war invasion, I remember shorting nat gas at these highs, going long, going short. Look at this, 2.5 standard deviation decline, 2.5 standard deviation decline, 2.5 standard deviation at the high of the band, decline, 2.5 standard decline. So every time we seem to hit this 2.5 standard deviation Bollinger Band, we seem to see sell side pressure. And right now, obviously, nat gas is coming from a more depressed level, which is what you have to keep in mind. But it's definitely had a very bullish move, which our members were able to capture most of this upside move. And as of now, nat gas short is officially our biggest position in our portfolio. So call me crazy. This is the Widowmaker. It has a tendency to overshoot in both directions, but I think that this type of price action will get some sort of a pullback in the near term, some profit taking. I know a lot of traders, myself included, have taken profits on our natural gas exposure. And when you take it one step further, other than this trend line, you throw in a fib retrace from this high to the low. Take a look at what we're now hitting, the 50% retrace. So in an extension move, you're at a 50% fib. You're at a major resistance trend line going all the way back a few years. And then you also take it one step further. Look at some of these nat gas resource stocks. AR was one of the leading nat gas resource stocks that we were accumulating in this lower boundary range with members, and we caught most of the move. Did I sell early? Yeah, I did, but this stock pretty much front ran the whole nat gas move. And what we're seeing now is actually a bit of price action coming in. Today AR had a bit of a daily chart breakout attempt out of this little consolidation range, and it should have broken out. It had the nat gas strength behind it. It had a squeeze going on, and it couldn't break out of this little consolidation trend. And what's really interesting is on the 10-minute chart, you've now actually triggered a bit of a head and shoulders on this intraday chart. Even if you draw it like that, you've triggered it. If you draw it like this, you've also triggered it. So a little bit of bearish price action coming into these resource stocks, which tells us that if we get this downside move in some of these names, you could actually see a bit of profit taking coming into these names. EQT is another one, another little head and shoulders that's triggered on the daily chart, on the intraday chart. Huge reversal today on the daily chart with volume. So again, resource stocks are generally the more speculative money, and they actually typically in a bull market will lead the underlying commodity. So if we're already seeing natural gas resource stocks sell off, there's some sort of a potential that nat gas is going to see that same sort of sell-off. Now, I know everyone and their mother is watching this gap fill. Do I think it's going to be filled eventually? Yes, I do. But I'm actually in the camp that we're going to have a decent sized pullback in the near term. And if I'm correct about my thesis, I'm actually hoping for this pullback because this pullback that we get, if we get it, is going to make me even more bullish on the commodity. So why do I say that? Well, if we take this trend line away, if price action shapes up the way that I'm thinking, guys, I think we're going to get a pullback over the next few weeks to create a bit of a right shoulder. Then we'll start curling up. And then you'll have a potential inverse head and shoulders. And I've been discussing on this channel for quite a long time my year-end target for nat gas, roughly between $3 and $4. Obviously, we're already almost at $3, so that target can likely be adjusted even higher. But if we trigger this inverse head and shoulders, if we pull back, create a right shoulder here and dip down, maybe we dip down kind of in line with this pivot low here. But if we dip down and create an inverse head and shoulders here, guess what? The measured move of this pattern would take us, look where it takes us. Let me just draw this in. Basically $3.99, so $4 target. So this is why I think nat gas is actually going to pull back in the near term, along with a couple other intermarket analysis. You look at KOLD, which again, we crushed in the live day trade room off of that collapse. This is shaping up for a little bit of an intraday inverse head and shoulders, which gives us an upside target to about 58. So with all that being said, I remain long-term bullish on nat gas, but short-term bearish on nat gas. This weekly close is going to be very, very strong. You've had this 3 weekly bar surge. Typically after a 3 weekly bar surge into a resistance, into an overbought scenario, you do often very, very likely get a pullback in nat gas. So just a word to the wise, this does have a tendency. So again, even though I'm net short, this could absolutely keep squeezing against me. Again, the odds are probably not that that's going to happen, but just be aware that trading this asset, if you're chasing nat gas into this region off of a 2.5 standard deviation move, the risk to reward is certainly not in your favor. On that note, if you're interested in how I'm trading nat gas, please check out my tradingcapital.ca membership service.